Good evening and welcome to the Millcreek Township School District Committee meetings for Monday, January the 8th, 2024. The first meeting this evening will be the Instruction Student Services Committee, followed by the Finance and Operations Committee meeting, and concluding with the Personnel and Policy Committee. There will be a Committee of the Whole meeting this evening following the committee meetings. I'd like to welcome Troop 59, Our Lady of Peace Scouts, earning your citizenship. Is that citizenship in a community or? Great. Welcome. While we encourage the public to attend in person, all meetings will be streamed live on YouTube and be recorded for future viewing purposes. You can also view this evening's agendas as well as several additional informational items on our website, www.mtsd.org. In addition, please visit us and like us on our Facebook page, Millcreek Township School District. I'd also like to remind all speakers, core team members, and board members to speak clearly and distinctly into your microphone so you can be heard by all of our attendees this evening, whether they are here in person or viewing us on YouTube. During each of the committee meetings, we provide the opportunity for speakers to ask questions regarding any item listed on the agenda for the committee meetings. The same protocols apply to all individuals who wish to address the board. Before asking a question, please indicate which agenda item that you're asking about. The committee chairperson will review this at the appropriate time during their committee meeting. If you don't have any questions, but simply would like to make comments or a statement, we invite you to attend and participate in the regularly scheduled school board meetings held on the fourth Monday of each month, or to participate in the committee of the whole meeting that sometimes occur after the completion of the three committee meetings. Tonight, we do have a committee of the whole meeting schedule, which includes the opportunity to make comments regarding the matters related to the program, services, and operations of the Millcreek Township School District. Details can be found on our website with each of the meeting announcements. Again, the committee meetings tonight will give the public the opportunity to ask questions about the items on the committee's meeting agenda. Thank you for your cooperation. We appreciate your input and your feedback. Before we go to our first committee meeting, I'd like to announce to our audience what the committee assignments are for 2024. Board members have had the opportunity to provide feedback on what committee that they would like to serve on. So for the Millcreek Township School District Committee and Liaison assignment for 2024, Finance and Operations, Michael Linder. Mr. Linder will be the chair, and the other committee members will be Sue Ellen Pasquale and myself, Gary Winchell. Instruction and Student Services Committee is chaired by Shirley Winchell, with other members Janice Philbick and Sally Newsham. Personnel and Policy Committee is chaired by Jason Dean. Other members be Wade Brink and Mike Tabelka. The liaison assignments, Millcreek Education Foundation will be Jason Dean. Millcreek Parks and Recreation Commission will be Sally Newsham and Sue Ellen Pasquale. IU5 will be myself, Gary Winchell. VOTEC will be Michael Lindner will continue to be that liaison, and PSBA will be Wade Brink. Thank you. First committee meeting is Instruction Student Services. Mrs. Winchell.
Thank you. Item 1.01, roll call.
Ms. Winchell,
Here.
Ms. Philbeck,
Here.
and Ms. Newsham.
Here.
Thank you. Item 1.02, approval of the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item 2.01, the Instruction and Student Services Committee meeting minutes of November 13th. I'd like to make a motion to approve. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, action items tonight. There are 5 action items, and the action would be to take these to the meeting at the end of the month, the regular school board meeting. So item 3.01, the course title change.
So this is an easy one. The department actually generated this change and asked us to change the course title from Earth Space to Earth and Space Science, just to make it more representative of the course content.
Thank you. Item 3.02 is the 2025 presidential inauguration field trip request.
Yeah, and this is an exciting opportunity being requested from the high school, the 11 and 12 building, particularly for the 12th grade AP and honors U.S. government classes. Potential to take up to 60 students and 4 chaperones to attend the inauguration. Obviously a life-changing event for the students, and certainly there's a little bit more of a travel arrangements beyond just that event. They'll see some of the sites of Washington, D.C. and tour some of the memorials there as well. The idea is for them to fundraise the entire cost of the trip so the district does not pay for it.
Thank you. Item 3.03, the Barber Center Service Agreement.
Good evening. Yes, the service agreement is for a one-on-one special education assistant that's required for a student who has recently begun attending at the Barber National Institute.
I believe 3.04
And
can also help with.
3.404, Mrs. Winchell, I believe, is going to be pushed into the committee of the whole meeting onto Dr. Kavanaugh's agenda for additional counseling hours for Sarah Reed.
It is on the agenda 3.02.
Okay, and so with this agreement with Sarah Reed as far as you are aware, we have 7 student assistance professionals who work as mental health counselors at all of our 10 buildings. This agreement is to provide an additional hour for each of those professionals for the rest of this school year only to embark on a mentoring program for students identified by their building level teams.
Okay, thank you.
And Mrs. Winchell, if you may, I would like to ask to make a slight change to this agreement, as the PCCD grant is using federal ESSER funds. So we had to adjust the master service agreement. Therefore, as you see under the other conditions of the agreement, it states that this statement of work is in addition to and governed by the terms of the master education service agreement between Sarah Reed Children's Center and the Millcreek Township School District, as amended is how I would suggest making it, as compared to signed on 5/31/2022. Again, we had to adjust that master service agreement in order to maintain compliance with federal regulations.
So when we address the motion for this item, which we want to move to the committee of the whole as opposed to the end of the month, the person who would make that motion would include that slight amendment to the language in the agreement as identified by Mr. O'Toole.
Okay. Okay, then let's backtrack and go back to, let me make a motion for items 3.01, 3.02, and 3.03 to move forward to the end of the month. May I have a second for that?
Second.
Is there any discussion on items 1, 2, or 3?
I would just like to say what a incredible opportunity for the students to be able to go to the inaugurations.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of moving 1, 2, and 3 to the meeting at the end of the month, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, then item 3.04 is moving forward to the COW with the language change that Mr. O'Toole just mentioned. I'd like to make a motion to move that to the meeting later this evening. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, the final action item is 3.05, the MTSD pre-K program.
Thank you. Could you click to the next slide, please? Okay, so we're here this evening to talk about the Millcreek Township School District involvement with pre-K. Am I good to go now? Okay. So the first thing is the rationale why we're looking at this. And underneath it are the reasons. So the reasons that we're looking at are space in our buildings, which I'll talk a little bit in more detail as we get further in the presentation. Under enrollment in the program itself, which has been consistent over the past handful of years, which Mr. O'Toole will be addressing. Rising costs, which Mr. O'Toole will be addressing. And then DHS requirements, which DHS has different requirements than we do. So some of their requirements are now in violation of our contractual language with our teachers in the MEA. The process that we utilize, we've been looking at all of this information since October and meeting here as a leadership team to talk about what the enrollment trends are, what the cost of the programs and what it would take to maintain it, and then the impact it's had on the budget, which Mr. O'Toole is going to address.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with enrollment. As you look at this slide here, this is just to show a summary of enrollment. Down the left-hand side, we show the location of the classrooms. We do have pre-K count slots, and then the total tuition paying students at the bottom. So if you look in the second column, you can see capacity. Our overall capacity for the pre-K program in its entirety is 120 slots, for which 60 are pre-K counts funded, which is state funding. In addition to that, you'll see down, I started in 2021 to 2020, moving down to the right-hand side to the current fiscal year to give us a general idea of what is the average ADM for each classroom as well as the program in total. Just to let everybody have a better understanding of what ADM is. ADM is your average daily membership. So essentially what it is it's trying to normalize it because every student doesn't go 5 days a week. We do have, for example, in this current school year, out of the 103 students we have, 36 are part-time. They either go 2 or 3 days a week. Therefore, if you look on the right-hand side here and you look at the total as of 12/7, the ADM is 85.2. That's out of 103 students. They don't pay for the days that they're not going. So it's trying to keep this apples to apples as you're looking for comparison's sake. So as we're looking down through, you could see in the 2020, 2021, there is a 76.59 ADM out of 120 slots. So on, moving down 100, 93.86, and then 85.2. Essentially what that equates to is in 2021, we had a 69% capacity fill rate. In the 2021, 22, 83%, the next year, 78%, the next year, 71%. That fill rate should be in the 90s. So moving on to taking a look, and it's going to be very expensive for this program to break even if we're not filling the seats available. So let's take a look at what our tuition rate is. And we'll just focus on the 23-24 because this history really doesn't matter at this. So if we take a look at this and where this program has performed year over year, we look back at 12-13, 13-14, it did have a loss. So this shows from 12-13 school year up to forecasted for the 23-24 school year, your revenue, your expenditures, and the total. So we'll focus on that total row at this moment in time. So there was a loss of 83,000, a loss of 309,000. And then in 14-15, we went and revised the staffing structure. That's what created the split staff that we had because we couldn't afford to run the program as it was before. It was losing $309,000 in that year. We struggled throughout the next couple of years. We've also, you can see here in 2020, 21, 21, 22 with the footnotes at the bottom, we used COVID money to maintain that profitability over those years. We eliminated the school age before and after care program because of the split shifts that we had and we couldn't staff those. Therefore, we're really focusing on preschool only at this moment in time. And then this past fiscal year, we made no more half days. We created all the program to be full day. And the purpose of that was trying to maximize the subsidy in return, given the fact that it was 2/3 more compared to part-time. In order just to keep this program from breaking even year over year. These are the changes that we've made over time. And I can say as a parent, I do think that that has a child in the program. I do think the program is very well completed. It's done very well. However, we are struggling year in and year out. We need space within our other buildings, our K-12, which Dr. Kavanaugh is going to go over here in a little bit further about how we're capped out at multiple buildings in terms of enrollment. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Kavanaugh.
Okay, so before I begin going on to the next slide, one thing I do want to clarify, because ultimately in my goal of being proactive and trying to offer a solution, I worded things in the letter that I think led to some confusion. I am in no way trying to push the CDC on anybody. I try to come up with a viable solution if we vote to eliminate the program. I look back at last year when we talked about getting rid of before and after care, and a lot of people came and said, well, what are we going to do with the kids? So I reached out to the CDC trying to be proactive and asked them if they'd be willing to take on our students, knowing it would be a challenge. They have a center in Millcreek at our old Asbury. They would have to open up another wing in there, which they do have space for, and hire more teachers to do it, but they would be willing to do so. That being said, if you choose not to send your child to the CDC, that is perfectly fine. We're not partnering with them. We're not joining with them. They are just being one of the ones that we're offering to you as a possibility, and they are willing to take on the students if you wish them to do so. And why the CDC? Well, one, when we transitioned the before and after care over to the CDC, it seemed to go very smoothly and it's been very effective from all accounts. Two, if you look at their years of experience with early childhood education and some of the different recognitions, as you look down at the last two bullet points on there, when you're talking about having 6 of them accredited, which is a very rigorous accreditation. And then all of their programs are 4-star. It goes 1 to 4, 4 being the highest. So the CDC offers a very rigorous program for their students. Not saying Mill Creek doesn't. Mill Creek's program is outstanding. Mill Creek's program is excellent. Next slide. Next thing under CDC, when you look about, and just kind of just some things for the public to be able to see, they use a research-based curriculum that's aligned with the Pennsylvania Early Learning Standards. Ultimately, just like we do from our level, they answer to the state. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the same curriculum as ours. It is not necessarily, but it's still a rigorous curriculum that does meet state standards. Talking a few bullets down, they have a full medical team on site there to meet all of the needs of our students, and they offer breakfast, lunch, and snack to all of the children who are free of charge within the program. Why now? Okay, and this is kind of the question. I mean, like I said, we've been analyzing this since the start of the year. One of my things since I've come into this position was to look at a 5-year strategic plan, and we're developing a planning process. And we're looking at ways we can basically save costs and expand what we offer depending on the level. Budget impact, as Mr. O'Toole showed before, taking a hit on the K-12 budget of $227,000 this year is going to be a challenge. And we consider that hit to continue over the next few years. Space, as Mr. O'Toole mentioned, we currently have 2 of our buildings that at kindergarten are capped, and 2 of the 5, and the 3rd building is 1 student from being capped in their kindergarten. In 1st grade, we have 2 of our buildings that are capped at the maximum number, and 1 more building that would be, if you add 1 student to it, they would hit the cap. And then we have 1 of our 2nd grade schools that have a 2nd grade that is currently capped. And we expect that these enrollment numbers will continue. And another thing that you're looking at as we start to talk about space needs is we have an increased number of special needs classrooms in our district that are capped by the state. So depending on what the class is, they're capped at either 8 students or 12 students. And that's a state cap, so we have to make sure that we meet that. So therefore, we're going to need more space moving forward. And then the next one is the majority of the students. So when we looked at the data to see what impact this would have, knowing that it was going to impact, but trying to impact as few people as possible, 71 of the 103 students are set to move on to kindergarten. So that leaves us 32 remaining. Of the 32 remaining at the present time, 22 of those 32 are only part-time currently. Now, not saying that that can't change moving forward to next year, because I realize that it can. So that was one of the reasons that we looked at now being a good time to try to make this move. So, and then impacted students and families, like I mentioned previously. I'm not pushing the CDC on anybody. If you want to go there, I was trying to offer a viable solution that's located in Mill Creek. I did again try to be proactive and say, okay, somebody from Bell Valley might say, and I used to work over and live over on that side of town. Well, coming all the way across town is a long way. We don't want to use the one site over here at the old Asbury. What else could they offer? So I reached out again to the CDC just in case, and I said, what do you have on the east side of town that might benefit us? And they gave us 3 more locations that they'd be willing to take our students to. Now, I do recognize that those are outside of Mill Creek. I do recognize many people are not comfortable putting them there. All of our students who are currently in a Mill Creek program can go to the old Asbury site. They will move everybody there and have room for everybody at that site. The pre-K teachers, since I know this is one of the questions that will come up from both the MEA and the board, what's going to happen to our teachers? All of our teachers will have one of two options. If they want to maintain and stay with pre-K, they could be hired by the CDC. The CDC will take on all of our teachers. If they like to remain an employee of the Millcreek Township School District, they are welcome to stay within the district, and they will be placed in positions before the bidding goes out that they are certified to participate in. Next steps, we're going to be asking the board for approval of this on January 22nd. That's what we're hoping for, your final approval so we can move forward with our planning phase. The second one would be to work with our families and the CDC to assist in the smooth transition if people are interested. If they're not interested, there are many other programs out there that I'm aware of. So I just wanted to make sure that we had some offering for everybody if they would like it. And then work with the MEA, which we've already begun that process, to help our teachers find positions if they're interested. And then to work with all of our educational assistants, which we're always looking for educational assistants, to make sure that they get put into positions for next school year.
Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for bringing this forward in January, and we're not talking about a change until the beginning of next school year. We appreciate the fact that we as a board and families in the district have the time to process this and come up with another plan if that's necessary.
And Chair, if I could comment real quickly on that. Honestly, I was hoping to get it forward at the December meeting, but not having a December meeting, we couldn't do that, and we just couldn't get it ready for November. So that's why January, I know, is not the ideal time, right back from break. But the reason we did it right back from break is we wanted people to have a 7 or 8 month window to try to find something different if they don't like the option that we're offering.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Kavanaugh, what the teachers that would be displaced, do they get placed in a new position before the bid cycle goes through?
We have to work with the MEA to see how the MEA wants to handle it. That is the current plan, yes, but I'm not going to sit here and say that that's 100%, that I will be meeting with the MEA leadership to say what process do we want to follow that does not violate your contract. As long as we have positions, the bids can go too. We just have to make sure we have positions for all these people, which we would currently.
Thank you.
Based on retirements.
Thank you for making that clear that there is no agreement, there is no, we are moving children to the CDC. The CDC is a wonderful choice, and thank you for being proactive and looking for that option for our families. But families have the opportunity to make any choice that they do.
Yeah, I apologize because I used the word transitioning the program too, which in hindsight I probably shouldn't have used. I was trying to be proactive and find an option for everybody. This is an option, but I know that there's also out there Early Connections, the Y, South Hills. There's many different programs that are out there. So I'm in no way pushing it, although I do think the CDC is an excellent option.
Thank you. So really the bottom line of this is we need the space, and we have a projected loss of $227,000 this year with the program. And so it comes down to space and money.
Correct. And we would have had an issue previously if we didn't pay for it out of ESSER's funds. So we were able to sustain the program the previous few years, or we would have been losing money. This year's a little bit more due to a couple of different factors of how much that we are losing. But at the same time, we would still be losing money, and we're trying to. So those are the two biggest things. And we don't want to impact the budget with that much, because if we impact the budget with that negative against it, that impacts what we offer K to 12. And that's ultimately what we're in the business for, K to 12.
I think, Dr. Kavanaugh, it's a fair assessment that you said you've been talking about this at the beginning of the year, but I think some of the other board members are attest that previous administrations, we've discussed that as well. And I think the ESSER's money is relevant. The fact is, we know that is coming to an end here and later this year, and there's quite a few articles about what school districts are doing to make up for that. And I think it was only good timing because of the strategic plan that you're doing for the 1 to 5 years to see what programs are relevant. And many of the board members in the past and the community has asked to continue to evaluate the programs to see what we can and can't do, and obviously invest in the ones that make the most sense for our students.
And when I looked across all the districts throughout the IU, because when I go out to our IU meetings, we're one of the very few, if any, that offer pre-K instruction still at the building level. Most already have it outside and have for years. They've never run their own programs. As Mr. O'Toole said, this is not a knock on the program. We have an excellent program. We have excellent teachers. We have great families. This is just a decision that I think it's a challenging decision, but I thought now would be the best time to do it. Mr. O'Toole mentioned he has his own child, he has his own daughter in the program and feels it's a great program. But as an employee of the district, he sees that this is the route that we need to go.
I'd like to make a motion to bring 3.05 to the meeting at the end of the month. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion?
Under visitors' comments, questions from the public. So we have a few more agenda items, then there'll be questions from the public. Yep, gotcha, no problem.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of moving it to the regular meeting at the end of the month, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that ends the action items. I have 9 items listed under information items. 4.01, the National Conference of Teaching English Clear Out.
Good evening. I'm Hillary Gareline. I'm one of the supervisors of curriculum, and I have Sarah Stoops here. She is our 6th to 8th grade department chair for ELA. She's wonderful at leading the program, and she is one of 5 teachers that attended the National Council for Teachers of English in November, and she asked to come share out some of the information that she acquired there.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the opportunity to go to this conference. It was the first time I had ever gone to a conference of such size. And so while overwhelming, it was an experience that I will take with me as I go throughout my career. If you're unfamiliar with the NCTE, the National Council of Teachers of English, the annual convention brings thousands of educators, experts, authors, administrators, publishers, and others together for 4 days of learning, networking, and inspiration. As I attended, there were a number of benefits that really presented themselves to me, and I'd like to share those with you in the hopes that you'll see the benefit as well in continuing to send our educators there. The first one, and probably one of the most important, is professional development. As a conference, they put together over 600 plus workshops that we could attend. The book was thick, full of options for us to choose from, everything dedicated to specific grade levels, all the way down to topics that aligned with what's happening in our own classrooms right now. We had access to information. I got to sit and brainstorm with some of the greatest experts in the ELA field. And I got to gain insight into the latest teaching methods, research, and best practices that I, as then department chair, could come back and share with the rest of my department. These are just a few of the sessions that I attended over those 4 days. You'll see everything there from using graphic novels with all types of learners, firing up feedback and revision strategies, all the way down to how to do play-based strategies and ChatGPT, which is taking over our ELA department at the moment. So lots to choose from, and this is just like 1 day of the sessions that I attended. The other opportunity that we had was in networking, to be able to sit at a table with teachers from all across the country. We got to do valuable collaborations. We got to exchange classroom ideas. And I just got to build professional relationships outside of the district, which, you know, come in handy when you're trying to collaborate in those moments. They also had, particularly for me as an ELA middle school teacher, something called Makers in the Middle, and every grade level had that opportunity to work with just those teachers and educators in their specific field to build connections and share strategies for implementing in the middle grade classrooms. They also had an exhibit hall, which was probably one of my favorite places to go. They had over 300 vendors, publishers, authors, and experts that shared in the latest trends and innovations. As department chair, I'm sure you're aware we're going through a piloting process in our 6 to 8 ELA program. To be able to go and talk to these experts, see the educational resources that they have that are now so advanced and tech-based, and how to bring those back in the classroom, I came back with a whole document to share with Hillary of ideas that we could then implement in our classrooms moving forward. That's Alan Gratz there. He is one of the most popular authors in my classroom at the moment. Kids can't get enough of his books, and I had the opportunity to meet him, get autographed novels for my classroom that the kids are just thrilled with. So I just wanted to share that. We also had the opportunity to see some inspirational speakers. They talked about the importance of breaking down barriers, bringing students to really read with purpose, hope, and change. Tom Hanks was the star of the show, who talked about his process. He just wrote a book, if you're unfamiliar, and he thanked teachers for their role in his creative processes. And then we also heard from Angie Thomas, world wonder in poetry and speaking about the importance of creating safe, inclusive classrooms for our students. We also got to get leadership development, which for me as department chair was really beneficial. I got to talk about important policy issues directly affecting the functionality of our classrooms. It empowered educators, if you're not already in those leadership programs or leadership positions, to take on those roles and to be the change in their communities and their school districts. It was also an opportunity for us to share connected ideas and resources between leaders. And then lastly, just the renewal of enthusiasm. And I can speak for all of us who went to this convention as we kind of all collected our thoughts afterwards. Just the experience and the knowledge and the teacher tools we were able to put in our toolbox to bring back to our classrooms brought such a invigorating, rejuvenating enthusiasm for what we do. I have so many new ideas that I'm going to then put into my classroom. I was able to share this with my students. I showed them pictures. I got them excited. I think I came back with maybe 65 new novels for my classroom library that they're thrilled with. So just being able to have that experience and share that with my students was a wonderful moment. So I just wanted to thank you for sending me and giving me the opportunity to do that. And I would encourage you, next year our convention is in Boston, which I know is quite a distance, and I know that there's an expense behind that. But the amount of benefit that you get as an educator in going to something like that is priceless. So I hope that you'll consider that moving forward for some of our educators. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and doing that presentation. And it was perfect. It was to the point, and it shows the value of going to these conferences and what we're bringing back. I had the opportunity to go to a math one when I was a teacher, and in a lot of ways, it reaffirmed what we were doing in Millcreek. When you meet with people all over the country and you're like, yeah, we do that, but then you do learn other things. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, thanks so much for such a great presentation. And it is on our radar, sending people. You know, during COVID, we got out of that habit of sending people away to conferences, and we are definitely committed to that in the future. So thank you so much. That was very exciting. I usually get excited about math and science, but you got me excited about language arts.
It was a very wonderful experience. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item, information item, is 4.02, the Asbury Instructional Practice Share.
I was going to say, I can't go ahead. There we go. So, Sarah, thanks. I got to follow that amazing presentation. We don't have as many slides, but we do want to thank everybody for allowing us to come tonight to talk to you about Asbury and our fact fluency in kindergarten. So hopefully, I got 2 members of the board at the end get excited a little bit about math. So I just wanted to show you the 4 amazing educators that spend time with our youngest population every day. If you've never taught kindergarten, whew, that's not, I'm an elementary certified person. That's probably not the first place I would pick to go if I was going to go back into the teaching field. But these 4 always have a ton of energy every day. And you're going to see that in the video that we share here in a few minutes about fact fluency. But the other thing I want to say before we get going is that this video started because of a conversation with Mrs. Dunmeyer. Our teachers wanted to talk about something they do every day. And because of that conversation, Jen and I think Mrs. Elliott was there that day, got excited about what they were presenting and how amazing our students were doing at it. So we asked them if they would participate in this video. So what are some things we're going to see? What is fact fluency? Again, I'm not going to insult anybody's intelligence. It speaks for itself. But again, we want our students to be able to know what numbers represent, okay, with addition, subtraction, multiplication. Obviously not multiplication in kindergarten yet, but at least with addition and subtraction. What does that number mean? Why is 1 + 1 = 2? And we want them to be able to not have to worry about the numbers so they can focus on the skills and strategies that they're being taught by their teachers. You're going to hear this word. I said this word tonight to my wife and she looked at me because she's an English language arts person and said, "You said what?" So I showed her the definition of subitize. And again, it's just being able to recognize numbers with not having to count. So you roll a die, that's the one example. A 2 comes up. Students don't have to count those 2 dots because they already know that that's a 2. It's being able to understand patterns. And again, they use the die up there for that as well. So we don't want to take a ton of time because really the power is in the video of our teachers and students. So I'm going to click to the next slide and ask Patrick if he can control click on it. Take it. Yep. Hopefully.
That many. Just worked on fact fluency, subitizing, where students are flashed up there. Dots. That's what they can. How many dots are missing? How to count. And at this age, it gives them a sense. How many there are. Being able to see them. Section up. That we started with. I got and after seeing them. That learning, the 2 together with. I'd like them to know that this is them. Identify 10 dots. I'm students guide, but seeing them in one way, they're only going. That's the number. Are they really? I just seen them. For them, and the true meaning of.
So that's our presentation, not to make it short, but like I said, the values in seeing our kids and our students. And if you could go into those classrooms, you know, Mrs. Patron, 20 plus years, to Miss Lowther, I think she's got 5 or less. So the experience, the knowledge, the attention to detail. I mean, they could sit there and explain that all day. I think when Leanna was there, she spent more time in each classroom than she anticipated, but part of that's our kids and our teachers wanted to share. So we're excited about it. Like I said, if I have a bad day, I go to kindergarten or I go to our life skills classrooms because that's where all the energy is. So we appreciate time to share about our kindergarten classrooms. Any questions?
No, but I love that you're working on those basic facts. I know if you've never taught math and you think, well, what's the big deal if they don't know what 3 times 2 is right off the bat? But what happens as you get up in levels is you're teaching them these hard problems to do with all these processes, and they have to stop and say 2, 4, 6, it's 6. And so they lose their whole train of thought on what they're doing. So it's very important. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And please thank the teachers and students for that wonderful video. That was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is 4.03, the MTSD Cyber Program Update. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come and present tonight. You guys, I bet you didn't think you were going to learn anything tonight, but I definitely did. Subitize. That's a new word that I've never used in my vocabulary before and may never use again. But again, my name is Brian Fuller. I'm the virtual education coordinator for the district, as well as the assistant principal at J.S. Wilson. Just here to kind of give you a little bit of the state of the union of where we're at with our cyber program. Here's some comparison data from last year to where we are currently by grade of how many students we have enrolled, and that was as of December 12th. Please understand this is very fluid and changes weekly and a lot of the times daily. We're enrolling students quite often. So that gives you an idea where we're at. As of the 12th, we had 125 students with 32 having IEPs and 10 having 504s. There's some other comparisons there. With 125, 5 of them are ECTS students as well, compared to what we had 3 at the end of the year last year. And then the amount of credit recovery accelerated and Sarah Reed students. And then there's a breakdown of our current IEPs. We have 33 and then 11 504s for a total of 44 students. Again, that is as of the 12th of December. Data on our seniors. So we have 39 seniors that are going to graduate on time, which I think is outstanding. So that shows that the program is working for our seniors. We're actually seeing more seniors bump into the Keola program because a lot of them have their credits. They've done everything they've needed to do for the first 3 years. So they're coming in as their senior year with 24 credits, and then we need 28 to graduate. So a lot of them are bumping in. We are getting students to graduate early. This says 1, but we did just have another one finish last week. So we're up to 2 seniors graduating early. And only 1 will need summer school to be able to graduate on time. So I think it's working for our seniors. It's getting them out on time. And then we were able to have 2 of our 23 grads finished by September 30th to be considered a 2023 grad instead of bumping into the 24 school year. So the seniors are taking this program and using it to their advantage. Some progress here. It shows that we have 7 juniors that will need credit recovery or summer school to get back on track to be considered a senior when they come in next year. 1 sophomore, and then the freshman is just too early to tell. Can't tell if they're behind credit yet because they haven't even earned any credits because of the way the program is set up with in progress grades. Second semester projections. This is the big one. This is, I'm sure, what everyone wanted to see. It's very hard to tell. We can go off of last year's data, and you can see that we had 84 students enroll in the second semester last year, with 52 of them coming between January and March 15th, and then another 32 at the end of the year. Right now, we are projecting that 7 of the current students will be going back to in-person at the end of the semester, which is January 18th. And that's just in working with the high school counselors that we believe 7 will be going back. And currently, right now, we have 7 students projected to come in second semester. So we have 5 applications from parents already in the queue. And then from some emails, we have 2 others. We're expecting at least 7 more. But I know we enrolled 2 middle school students and an elementary student within the last week that's not part of that. So we do expect that to go up a lot more than just the 7 or 9 that we're expecting. Cost. here's the expenses for out-of-district cyber programs. Well, I know this is a major concern for the district. We have many students that are in outside cyber programs. So you can see that at the end of the year was 12,470 for regular ed and 26,000 for the special ed students. This year we had no students leave us to go to outside cyber, so that's good. So we're saving that money. And we were actually able to bring back a few 4 students, get them to come back to our program and keep them from going. And so that's good. But looking at some of the expenses that aren't up there, I did some math. The Keola cost on average is about $3,700 per student. It changes between elementary and high school. So on average, it's about $3,700. So if we have 125 students in our program, that's $472,000. So if those students were to go outside cyber, that number would be about 2 million. So if you take out the 472, we're at about a net savings of about 1.5 million that this program is actually saving the district. We believe that if we did not have this program, all 125 of those students would go outside cyber. There's a reason that they want to go cyber, so they would go somewhere. So this program is working. I know it seems like it's expensive, but it is actually, I believe, saving the district some money in the long run by keeping the students in-house and not allowing them to go outside cyber. Here's some of the reasons for choosing the cyber learning. This really hasn't changed from last year. Students are having social behavioral health needs. We've seen that through COVID, and it's just increasing every year. Truancy concerns, kids just can't get to school, so parents want to put them in the cyber program. They think it'll work, that they can complete the work at home. Some chronic in-school behavior issues, failing grades, and then the flexibility of the time. That's what we're seeing with a lot of the seniors is they like the flexibility that a lot of them have jobs. So they can go out and they can work in the morning and then do their school at night. They can do their school in the morning and then work after school, from 12 o'clock on, and they get more, full-time jobs in for some of the seniors. So those are the reasons that we're seeing there. And then some positive student experiences of what they're seeing. They like having the dedicated support staff. We have a full-time school counselor that is only for the Keola students. The students enjoy that. We were hoping to have a special education teacher. We just haven't been able to find one to fill it, but we do have 2 that are doing an outstanding job on a per diem basis and putting extra hours in and doing a great job with our students there to meet all of their needs. And there's some other things. I'm not going to read them all for you, but I do believe the program is working and it is being successful for our students. And some of the growth targets we had coming in this year, and I believe we have met all of them. Increasing exceptional customer service. We are active. Parents send emails. We're on top of it. We're getting back to them as soon as possible. And we want to give a positive experience. Number one, we want to keep them, right? We want to keep them in our own program so that they're not going to outside cyber programs. Seamless summer reentry. We made it a much easier process for the students that were in Keola last year to automatically be enrolled this year and start the season or the school year much easier. Last year, I understand it was a difficult process. This year, we've cleaned it up a lot to where the students are automatically enrolled and we get their schedules done for them. We've redone the webpage and marketing materials. We've gotten that information out earlier. We did have to investigate a single license option. We do have one student that wanted something different. So instead of them going out to outside cyber, Trevor did this before I was in a position, but we were able to find a platform that worked for that family. And again, we kept them in-house and saved some money there. We revised the policies and parent documentation. We order supplies early, and we actually have all of our second semester supplies on hand already, ready to go out to the second semester students. So they're getting the materials they need in a timely manner. Increased blending of in-school participation. We're trying to get these kids, they are our students. Okay, just because they're Keola, they're still MTSD students, so they can participate in our after-school activities and our athletic teams and our plays and all of that kind of stuff. So we're getting more of those students back on campus as much as we can. And then the MAP testing and the early communication for PSSA and Keystone testing through our school counselor. That's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, Brian, I have a question. Just is there any proactive efforts going on as far as the outside cyber to try to counsel them to come back either to Keola or in?
We do. We try to reach out when we can. A lot of those students have been outside cyber since day one, so it's difficult to get them back because they just don't see the benefits of our program. But we are trying to reach out to those families and try to get them back to us.
Thank you so much for that presentation. One quick question. Do we do any sort of a parent or family
Like an intro night?
Yes.
Yes, we did. We held it at JS this year. It was pretty well attended. So we just kind of, those are for mostly the new students that are going to Keolis to kind of give them the layout of the program, how it works, how the platform, what the platform looks like when they log in and what screens they need to click on. And so we do have an intro program. Like an open house.
Survey, like a satisfaction survey at the end of the year or midway through the year to.
Well, this is my first year in the program, so I will say yes.
Okay.
There you go.
I don't know if there was in the past, but that's certainly something we could easily do.
And there was at the end of last year as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Appreciate Dr. Cavan. I know we requested that a meeting or so ago, so appreciate your following up on that.
Okay, the next item is 4.04, the McDowell Targeted School Improvement Designation.
Okay, so last year, in my former role, I had mentioned to you guys that J.S. Wilson was on the ATSI, which is Additional Targeted Support and Improvement. This year, McDowell High School has been deemed to be a Targeted Support and Improvement school. That's based on their special ed population. It's based on looking at their academic achievement, their academic growth, and their graduation 4-year and 5-year cohort. Now, normally in the past, our achievement has stayed similar to where it's been, but our growth has been very good. When they look at 2021, 21, 22, that's the data they're looking at. For some reason, this particular last year, our growth was not as high as it's been in the past. So being down growth this time around and the achievement staying where it was with our special ed population has hurt us. So we have to look into what's caused that growth. The other concern is the graduation 4- and 5-year cohort. I'm currently in debate with the state on which data they're using and who is right and who's not. I believe that we're being wrongly penalized for our students who stay beyond the age of 18. They're set to graduate, but their IEPs allow them to stay till they're 19, 20, 21, and now this year, 22. And I think that they're counting that incorrectly in their data. So I have emails going back and forth with the state. I will be having conversations. So that part will hopefully come off, and thus maybe I am wrong, but I got to review some of the PIMS data and then have another meeting with the state to determine that. But similar to the plan last year, it will force our high school administrators, which would be Mrs. Beans and Mr. Quivy, to put together a steering committee, which they will do of administrators, teachers, parents, and students, and to develop a plan looking at that group, but also more globally at the entire building, so no other groups within the building go on that group. Not like last year's plan, this one does not require the IU involvement. The IU will support us if need be. Last year for Jess's plan, they had to be directly involved. They had to sign off on it before the board signed off on it. This one, they'll bring forward, we'll present it to you. It doesn't even go live until February. It's expected to be completed by the end of the year. We'll bring it to you later in the year for approval, and it goes into play next school year. So it's kind of bad because you're looking at data that's 2 years old, not getting anything until February this year, putting a plan in play that's supposed to address the concerns next year, hoping that it doesn't get worse in the meantime. So it's kind of a little bit backwards, but that's unfortunately the data we're forced to deal with, so we will do so. So I'll be back in front of the board. Probably I'll have the high school administrators here, I'd say maybe April, May-ish time.
Thank you. Item 4.05 is the kindergarten readiness project update.
And this is just a short update for everybody. You probably remember towards the beginning of the year, we said that we were undertaking a committee to examine our kindergarten start date, currently September 1st. That aligns with, many other districts were in sort of the later 1/3 of that. But of course, the perennial question is, is that the best service to our students? And then by extension, our staff, and when is the best time for students to start kindergarten? So we put together a 10-person committee. It includes an administrator from each of the 5 elementary buildings. It includes 3 of our kindergarten teachers, and it includes an elementary interventionist. We pulled a data workbook on every student with a July and August birthday in grades K through 4. And then we attached every piece of data to those students that we could. In other words, for each one of those school years, what kind of testing data do we have, what behavioral, what attendance data, and then what anecdotal data do we have from their teachers. And that includes, again, everything from test scores up through student services and, special tiered support interventions, et cetera, that they receive. So again, well over 5,500 data points that we've been scrutinizing and going through. We will have a recommendation for you next month is the target goal. Really appreciate the work of the committee doing a deep data dive on this. We understand that the implications are huge. If we were, for example, to back up our start date to an August 1st or a July 1st, we know that there would be a large contingent of students who would now have to entertain an entire year extra that maybe the parents didn't plan on for a pre-K program, or certainly maybe no pre-K program at all. And then they start school maybe even a little bit more behind. So the point is just to update you that the data analysis continues. We'll have all of that to share with you next month with some final recommendations.
Thank you. 4.06 is the new electives and non-compete with the ECTS.
And this is a follow-up from a couple of past board meetings. As you know, we're adding some new electives to the high school, things like welding, things like survey courses for construction trades. We did examine the articles of agreement, and Attorney Senate has reviewed those as well. They don't conflict with our programs at ECTS. We have allowance for enrollment or capacity is the wording in that agreement for us to be able to offer programs of our own. But beyond that, Dr. Kavanaugh and I wanted to make sure that ECTS was completely comfortable with what we were doing. So we had a meeting in mid-December with Matt Laverty, who's the director of Erie County Technical School, to explain the kind of elective courses that we were offering, that they don't compete with the programs at ECTS. And certainly we'll continue to counsel our students towards ECTS for the more robust and certainly more long-standing programs that end with actual industry certifications. Our courses don't. These, again, are survey elective type of courses. He was very comfortable with that. And in fact, we had a great discussion around enrollment numbers, programs, and even some additional offerings that I know certainly we're going to talk about tonight in our committee of the whole meeting as well, which we're excited about too.
Thank you. 4.07 is the PCCD school safety mental health grant.
And this is related to one of the action items that Dr. Nightemp talked about earlier. We have left over about $110,000 in the PCCD, that's the Pennsylvania Commission for Crime and Delinquency. That's the division of the state that administers now school safety grants, including mental and behavioral health grants. We have $110,000 left over. We certainly don't want to let a penny go to waste. So the core team has been discussing with administration what is our best use of funds for the remainder of the year. For, again, specifically, this has to be allocated for mental and behavioral health types of services for students. So we arrived at three prongs. One is what Dr. Nightemp talked about, increasing the behavioral health service hours of our STAP, our Sarah Reed STAP counselors, student assistance program counselors. The second is to bring back, as we can, the therapy dogs, which was very much requested from some of our middle school folks who used those services last year. It's an exceptional program. And the third is to create, which we've already launched, a one-to-one mentoring program. And in simple terms, we wanted to make connections between some of our most at-risk or needy students and the caring adults that are in their buildings already. So what we've done is we've been able to allocate a particular portion of funds for each building to erect a one-to-one mentoring program. They have latitude in how to do that as best they see fit. One of our elementary schools, for example, is going to use their 4 male custodians to pair up with students who need a solid male role model. And they're going to set up a structure for them to meet before, after school, of course, and sort of a group format. Sometimes they'll play basketball in the gym. Sometimes they'll do other activities. Other schools are using that to just open up to teachers and say, teachers, if you're interested, please let us know. And then they'll match them up with a student who's in need of mentoring. They can meet again before school, after school, with all the parent permission slips in place there as well. The research says very clearly that one-to-one mentoring relationships with caring adults have huge impacts for our students. So we're very excited about that as well. The intention, again, is to use up all of that money and make sure nothing goes to waste.
Thank you. 4.08 field trip updates.
These are very basic. The MIHS 7, these were all board approved. We just simply have a change in venue. The MIHS 7 field trip was for the Aquatics 2 class. They were originally slated to go on the Lady Kate boat tour. They're going to have to switch that to the Victorian Princess. McDowell 22 was for the Honors College to attend Penn State Behrend back in November. That trip got canceled. They're going to now attend Gannon University later on this month. And there's an additional item that did not make it on the board agenda. This just came to us this morning, but this was already board approved on the board approved calendar. And this is Debate 22 field trip has been moved from Philadelphia much closer to us in Pittsburgh. We would have talked about it next month, but the trip is on February 8th, so it wouldn't have aligned with our meetings. But again, that was on the board approved calendar already at the beginning of the year.
Thank you. Our final information item is 4.09 field trip request.
And this is a request from Carrie Barzeski to take up to 46 of our female students to the Junior Achievement Empower Her Summit at Gannon University. This would be in March, and a great day-long summit. There's keynote speakers from influential female business leaders. There are sort of station activities with real-world exercises. The entire intent, of course, is to get a good dose of female leadership, entrepreneurship, and business for some of our female students. Minimal cost. It would be grant funded by Junior Achievement for $130. Really, the only expense to the district is transportation for a bus down there and for substitutes for the 2 teachers who would attend.
Okay, that concludes our information items. 5.01 is instruction and student services questions from the public. So I'd like to ask the public if there are any questions, and if you have a question, if you could raise your hand, and after you're recognized, if you could please step to the podium and speak into the microphone so that the people that are viewing this on YouTube can also hear what the question is. So are there any questions? Yes, sir. Please.
I'm sorry, she recognized somebody else.
Oh.
I'll let you know.
Hello. As always, I found most of this information that you guys presented here at this school board meeting pretty creative, to say the least. I do see that with the CDC program that is being considered, I didn't see the fact that several of the CDC services facilities were shut down since 2017 to 19 for falsely representing the amount of teachers to student ratio and the amount of students that the CDC had.
Excuse me, sir.
With
This is
autism.
a time for questions. It's not.
Yes, this is a question. I do apologize if
Okay.
so, and that they misrepresented the children that they had in their autistic program intentionally, and that replenishment was a possibility. I was wondering if the board was aware of that, because you know, our children's safety doesn't seem to be a top consideration when we're looking at the numbers. For a student bus company, we have 4 injuries and 1 death last year. Last year, when I spoke about it, I was told that there was attempts being made to get.
Sir, I don't think that's an item on our agenda here tonight.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry. Well, was the school board aware of the CDC's negligent behavior in the past? And if so, why are you choosing to consider them to endanger our children at this point?
Okay, I would like to remind you that Dr. Kavanaugh made it clear that we are not choosing for any family where they may go, where they will go. The CDC is an option that we investigated, but each family is welcome to make their own individual decision based on their own research.
And I understand that, but is it generally the practice of the board to contract with people who have been reprimanded in prior conditions in other facilities that they run?
There's no contract or agreement. Every family is able to make their own decision about where to send their
Thank
child
you.
for pre.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Gentleman in the first row, yes.
Hi, Dr. Matthew White, former teacher, professor, and I run a business downtown now. I just had a few quick questions, legitimately questions regarding the pre-K closure. I myself have 1 student in the program. We have 2 additional children that will unless you choose to close it, also be in the program in the coming years. Is it possible to get that budget slide back up, or is that not possible at this point? Specifically, the running total of budget over school year 2014 to current school year. Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry, I don't mean to eat your time. It's related to that. Thank you. Yes. I suppose I can go to a different one while they're very fast, I promise. My wife noted to me that the tuition piece offered at CDC, and I understand it's not related to that, I understand. It's slightly more expensive than the tuition we pay currently at the school district. It's not dramatic. I think it's like $30 or $40 on a per pay basis, so $300 a month approximately. Given the number of students that you have enrolled already, was the option investigated to simply raise our tuition by that same amount in order to keep the existing program that's already offered?
You want to answer that one, Mr. O'Toole, or would you like me to? Go ahead.
So we would have to raise our rates about 25% in order for the break even. And that is assuming that we would be able to fill to capacity and there would be no part-time slots.
25% would be 600 instead of 300 on a yearly basis, right? I think most parents would. I mean, I can't speak for all of us, but
it's about $1,800 more. So if you're take 25% of.
Oh, I see. Of the yearly, yes. Okay. Yep. All right. I appreciate that. It's more
Yeah,
expensive.
Mr. O'Toole, that'd also be that they would be your calculations based on 5-day attendance.
That is correct. That is assuming that we would have 100% enrollment
at 5 days.
No part-time available.
Which that was our concern, honestly, sir, is we have not had 100% enrollment across any of the years. So to raise the rates and raise the expectation to get a higher amount, I don't think we would get there.
I understand. Yep. The next question I had was about capacity. I noted that on the original slide, you have much larger capacity than you do enrollment, which makes perfect sense. But that does beg the question of, if our goal is a percentage of total enrollment, why not reduce capacity instead of just completely removing the program? You know what I mean? So imagine we have a capacity of 190 students. Well, then we're at 90%.
That's a great question. And at the end of the day, we don't budget to 100% capacity. We
Sure.
budget typically to 90%.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're functioning much less than that, that's clear sign that there's an issue. So
What I'm suggesting is that if there's a capacity availability for 300 students, but you're only seeing 90 students enrolled, why do we continue to support a capacity for 300 instead of just shrinking it?
Because we have to be able to fund the cost of running the program itself.
And I think overall, not only that, but it is, in addition to that, I don't want you to forget the point of the space, right? We are capped out at many of our elementary buildings. We have growing special ed population, which has those ratios of 1:10 or less. So this isn't strictly a monetary decision at the end of the day. That is truly a space from a K-12 education. And we do have a slight growing enrollment within our K-12 education as well. So I don't want you to focus 100% on the monetary side.
Sure, business owner.
Other factor.
Yes. So with related to that, and I'm sorry, it's monetary again. On this slide, certainly you can see a tremendous budget shortfall in 12-13 and 13-14. But in the interim, what I see between 14 and now is a 10-year running surplus of operating 600,000, 650,000 over budget if you sum the remaining 10 years. So to that extent, a $227,000 shortfall still represents a 10 or 11-year running total of 400,000 above your operating budget, doesn't it?
No, I mean, you're looking at 17, 18, you had a deficit. If you're talking an
I mean, add those numbers up and it's plus 600.
Well, when you look at the net position in a deficit of 1.3 million, that's what that provided that net position.
That's right, but the pre-K program is also without context in these slides for the total cost of the other operations of the budget that led to that net position. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have a full picture here of the financial picture that's being used to make the decision to not offer my child something.
Didn't you say something about Esser's money was used to?
Yeah, and he's bringing up a great point though. You're taking year over year and you're adding it. It's still at a positive. However, if you take it and subtract out the Esser's funding, you're not going to have that any longer, right? Because you're looking at 527,000 plus another 340. can't read that from here.
$891,000.
Right, so that you're coming in that subsidizes the program. In addition to your question saying,
Yeah.
'cause you're not talking about the lights, the other
Sure, sure.
operational components.
Overhead, yeah.
perspective of it, for which isn't included, or is already included as part of those expenditures.
You could see how that question would be frustrating when we've seen like the sports park 600, 700,000 over budget and things over the last few years. So from a parent's perspective, when we're looking at monetary pieces with the education component of the education we hope to receive, that budget shortfall seems rather small over a 10-year period compared to, say, football.
Another good question. However, keep in mind that this program is a complete separate fund than everything else you're talking about, right? So when you're trying to look at this, this is a proprietary fund.
Sure.
It's its own fund set aside, separate than the general fund, which is your K-12 instruction and everything else associated with it. Therefore, if there is a shortfall within the child development fund itself, it is forced to rely on the general fund to pay that deficit. So there's that risk that you're running. So I think that's a great question that you're asking. However, when you're looking in context of truly understanding how the money is separated,
Sure.
and that is by law, you know, that you're separated out by funds, which is completely treated completely separate compared to the general fund itself.
Okay. Last one, promise, is on projections. So, yep, I'm so sorry. Yep, very fast. I'm confused at how you can have a paucity of pre-K in the presence of a stuffed kindergarten, and also the projections that drive that. So we have 3 children, for example, and one of whom is destined, or previously destined, to be in the pre-K program here, but the registration for that isn't yet open. So from the district's point of view, you have no official idea that my son is coming. So he obviously is not in that projection, right?
Hence why you see that forecast as of 12/7. Forecasting isn't a perfect science, right?
I mean, if the registration's open, there'd be a 0 forecast, right? None of us can register yet.
For pre-K,
Right.
you can currently register for pre-K. I mean, that is open throughout the course of the year.
We haven't received our, okay, then, all right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions about any of the agenda items or instruction? Okay. Oh, yes. Go ahead, please approach the microphone.
Thank you, Lou Aliota. Dr. Kavanaugh, you're aware a number of years ago, we sold Vernondale.
Right.
Okay. Quick question. Did you reach out to any other educational institutions in the area besides CDC?
No, I did not. As I explained earlier, we already had a little bit of relationship with CDC because we turned over the before and after care program, and that was transitioning.
Okay, yeah, you have a relationship with CDC.
From the standpoint that we turned over the operation, that is it.
Right.
There's no connection, there's no contract, there's no nothing.
There's no conflicts of interest.
There is not.
Is there any type of agreement that MTSD would have with CDC in hiring either teachers, administrators?
No.
From the district?
Zero.
What happens when an individual retires from the district? Can they take a position at CDC?
When a person retires, they can go anywhere they want, Lou. I can't control that.
Okay, is that considered an appearance of a conflict of interest? Because we have one.
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know.
No. Okay. Our former superintendent went to CDC and contracted with CDC. Thank you.
He had the opportunity to do that just like any other individual.
Right. 2 days after he retires.
It's not relevant.
It's relevant to the questions that the CDC and MTSD is dealing with at the present time.
Mr. Aliota, he broke his association with CDC a few years ago.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions about any of the items in the instructional committee meeting agenda? Okay, item 6.01 is adjournment. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our next committee meeting is Finance and Operations. Mr. Lindner.
You have roll call?
I sure can. Mr. Lindner,
Here.
Miss Pasquale,
Here.
and Mr. Winchell.
Here.
First item of the evening is I'd like to ask for a motion for the approval of this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 2.01, I'd like to bring a motion forward for the approval of the Finance and Operation Committee meeting minutes from November 13th. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This evening, we do have 6 action items, 5 of which will come to the end of the month board meeting, and 1 is for the committee of the whole meeting following the personnel meeting this evening. So I'd like to bring the first 5 items forward as a block. And if we need to discuss them after they're brought up, they are all reoccurring in nature. We can have Mr. O'Toole and the administration speak to any questions at that point. So I'd like to bring item 3.01, which is the sub-grant contract for implementation of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA Part B. This is a grant in the total of $1,442,853.64 for this school year of 7/1 through 6/30/24. 3.02 is a sub-grant contract for use of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA Section 619. And this is a grant for $5,344, again, for July 1st through June 30th, 24. Item 3.03 is the accounts payable. This is the accounts payable through December and the current period. It also includes the payrolls of December 15th, 29th, and December 1st. 3.04 is an update to the Millcreek Township activity officers. There is a new officers for the McDowell Animal Care Club. 3.05 is a donation to the PAR team. Chick-fil-A donated lunch valued at $103.05. I'd like to make a motion to bring these 5 items forward to the board meeting at the end of the month. I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on any of these topics? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 3.0.
Yes. 3.02 is here, yes. Yes, you don't believe.
3.06 is the ECTS program addition and expansion of cosmetology, health assistant, and protective services. And I'd like to start off by making a motion that we tentatively approve this and bring it to the committee of the whole meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
As for discussion, I would like to invite Director Matt Laverty from the Erie County Technical Schools to come in and talk to us about why this is important to the school. I can tell you that I am personally in favor of this expansion, but I think he would do a much better job explaining the positives out at the Erie County Tech School and the positive growth that's taken place and the impact this would have for our students.
Well, thank you. Apologize. I actually had I know I wasn't going to be on the 7:20. Better not.
Thank you.
How are you? Thank you.
Enough for the board members that are color coded. I got black and white. Because then I went to the copier. Used at our board meeting and then I copied it. Now I ran down to the black and white. So all the board members have color.
We can share.
No. I told.
Okay.
Well,
And I actually already have all the numbers from Millcreek. And with all that, I make the joke that I fire our tech director about once a week. I think, Mike, you've been in our meetings and I said, Mike, you're fired. Our tech director's named Mike as well. But we'll just reinforce that with my evening before I came. But the good news is we got very healthy applications and good numbers at Erie County Technical School, and it's a good problem to have. So what you have in front of you is enrollment projections. If we took all first choice applications, people that said, I want to go to ECTS for next year, and I want to go to this program. Now it's first choice only, where we would be at in each program. Right now, Millcreek has 110 students coming to ECTS. You have 116 that have applied for first choice options into our programs next year. So what you're looking in front of you is our first choice applications, our possible seats that we have open in level ones for new students, level 1 students. The retaining, if we retained all the current level 1 and 2s, that'll go to level 2 and 3 next year. And then the capacity of each program.
I can just pause. I don't know if the board is completely familiar. Most of the ECTS programs are set up for sophomore, junior, and senior year. Level 1 are the incoming sophomores. 2 and 3 are juniors and seniors, and the seats are typically equally distributed. But depending on when the program launched, there may be. So I don't necessarily know if they're all as
perfect. I'll backtrack then. Each program with one teacher can take 48 students. That's in ideal world, 16 sophomores, 16 juniors, and 16 seniors. It fill up at 48. We have 2 programs, culinary and auto tech, that have 2 teacher labs, and they could take 96 students. And so that's double that, 32, 32, and 32 for 10, 11, and 12. Now, the big debate, or part of the debate, is we've gone through a renovation project, a very healthy investment of all 11 sending districts into renovating Erie County Technical School. And in doing so, they've added some extra space to expand. And that's where emergency and protective services comes into play. It's currently a program we don't offer. I know Venango County offers it and several other district county area VOTECs around. And we had our county EMA and 911 center come to our school earlier this year and like, they're short on people. Big time. Volunteer firemen, law enforcement, emergency medical people. That's what that program prepares us for. So in looking at new programs in 2020, we actually, our JOC moved to approve emergency protective services as a new program. But with the renovation and the disturbance, we held on opening that. And now we're looking to do that in the fall of 2024. As you look down through here, and the numbers I want to really highlight is the wait list on the far right side of there. We've had this conversation in the past. The most popular program is cosmetology. We get a lot of applicants to cosmetology. And they looked at doubling our cosmetology with a proposal last spring that took up and built a whole new salon and a whole new lab and took up all the space that we had already renovated into a new lab and re-renovated some of it and move a couple programs to where we went to a 2-teacher lab at the cost of upwards of $600 and some odd thousand. We explored that option. We came back in the fall. I was not in favor of that option. We went and looked at other options and we figured out a way to bring that option to us. And that's what we presented in December at our JOC meeting, where we could take our current space and just pretty much add a classroom space to it, and we could make it a 2-teacher lab. And that's where you see cosmetology with 2 teachers and what that would do. When we had that discussion, though, I pressed the issue on health. On our health program, you can see the wait list. 46 students, not as high as cosmetology, but our healthcare industry is screaming for people. And we're turning away 46 students from getting into our program. And so I said, we really need to do health. If we're going to do cosmetology, I can get behind cosmetology if we're going to do health. And that's where the discussion led to where we're at today. It was pretty well received favorably by most of our JOC members. A couple of them questioned why we pushed very hard not to do Cosmo 2 in meetings in August and September. And now we're flipping the script on that. And it pretty much came down to the dollar in the space. Similar discussion that you guys had earlier today. We can pull off the health and the Cosmo 2 to open in the fall of 2024. And we're projecting it to be about $180,000 of the renovation money. The current money we already have for our renovation, it would be shifted over to make that happen from contingency fund. Very, very different number than the 640,000 we were looking at over the spring and summer. So that's where we're at. That's the numbers. And I apologize, I don't have the Millcreek numbers because the computer crashed. I will email out those PDFs to you, John, and you can share them with the board of where your current numbers are with Millcreek kids in programs and where you're looking at projections for next year. Is there any questions for me at this time?
Yeah, I have one question. So just a great sheet. Appreciate that. A lot of demand, which is really good. One kind of stands out is the culinary arts. So I know like with the recent job reports on Friday, jobs were up substantially, basically in public and private, public sector, healthcare, which kind of goes.
Manufacturing and healthcare are the big ones, and
the
construction trades.
Yep. And the other one is, restaurant and hospitality. So there's a big demand for that. So what's a disconnect that we can't get more kids involved with that, seeing there's such a demand out there for those positions? And that's a sector of the job market that seems to be growing pretty good.
Absolutely. When you look at the 2 teacher lab scenario in culinary arts, if we were a 1 teacher lab, we'd be saying, hey, it's full and there's a wait list.
Okay.
We have a 2 teacher lab there. We have a brand new facility. For those of you that have never been to ECTS, come visit, come look at it, especially with the new culinary arts. That whole wing is beautiful and new. We have traditionally not filled that. It's a 2 teacher lab and we've had 60 to 70 students in it every single year. Now we also have hospitality and tourism on that list as well at the bottom, which is a 48 person 1 teacher lab. Gotcha. Those go together and we do see enrollment growth in both those programs, more in hospitality than actually the culinary arts. But we're not to full capacity yet at all.
Well, the 2 teacher thing.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
The other side of things like precision machining, manufacturing, what are the big 3? Like if you said industry clusters that are like screaming for people, it's manufacturing, it's healthcare, and it's construction trades. And all those industries, which are huge industries, none of us want to have to wait to get care because there's a shortage of nurses. So I was a chairman of board of UPMC Northwest down in where I'm from in Venango County. And there's 500 at one point in one of the meetings, 500 nursing openings in UPMC network north of I-80. That's a scary thought. And so when we have these discussions when we look at expansion of programs, we look at student interest first, and that's very important. We look at industry needs a lot. And then we look at our sending school districts. And I know we mentioned we had a conversation in December. We talked about it. And I've always, we're turning kids away from welding. We're turning kids away from some of these things. So absolutely open those programs locally. What you guys do in your local district in manufacturing and what you do in welding is awesome. It's great. You guys are getting great press. It's great experience for the kids. It's not quite what we do. We have 495 hours of a year in immersion into welding, metal fabrication. The class that they're going to take here is elective, I'm guessing is a 40-minute class.
80-minute class for a quarter.
Oh, so you got a 80-minute class. All right. So 240 hours in a year, which is actually pretty significant. I was thinking it was a 1 period out of 8 period schedule. So that's great. That's a great opportunity for kids. You get 240 hours, not quite the 495 that we have going on. with a kid picking our program. But yeah, I mean, if we were not full, we would question, wait a minute, kids, send them to our program. But when we're full and turning kids away, Metal Fab's another one that I'm talking about. Hey, how do we ramp this up? How do we got a wait list? Why are we turning away 33 kids after enrollment? You know what I mean? And these are first choice. We also have we had 609 first choice applications. And all those kids that don't get into these programs, 250 on the wait list there, the end of that, they could get into second choice program. But we're starting to fill up across the board there, as you see all that black at 100% full. That wasn't the case 2 and 3 years ago. That wasn't the case 5 and 6 years ago. So very good problem to have.
With this expansion, I know that we talked about it at the JOC meeting. The ECTS still has the space available for future program growth. We're not utilizing all of the existing school space.
Correct. And that was the creative thought of this cosmetology that we figured out how to make it happen. The prior proposal built a whole second lab, took up all the new space that was part of it for the Cosmo program. And then we didn't have this space to expand. With doing it, this new version that we figured out, we are able to really maximize our space. So emergency protective services will go into one of the new spaces, and there's a second new space that still won't be filled yet, that we can look at further expansion. When we met with the superintendents, we talked a lot about being thoughtful and intentional and about the local budgets as well. Because as we expand, you guys send more students, there's more tuition cost. And when you add, say, 6 more students into our programs, that's a $50,000 hit on your local budget. Not the same impact at Millcreek because of the size of your budget as you might have at Union City, Northwestern, Iroquois, the smaller ones. But, those kids still can get in those programs and it affects them pretty high. So we wanted to be thoughtful about growth, grow over time. Over the next 2 to 3 years, add a couple programs over time, maybe expand if we have the funding, which we currently have some funding to make this Cosmo 2 and Health 2 happen with the contingency fund of the renovation.
Just a quick question about the health assistant program. What kind of jobs are you aiming at with that program?
So it's like a pre-nursing program. So they could go in quite a bit. We added sports therapy a couple of years ago. This is year 2 of sports therapy, and they're kind of sister programs, so to say. So you're talking anything in the medical field. I mean, a range from, it's a heavy in anatomy, it's pre-nursing. The goal is to go on to be an LPN, CNA, an LPN, an RN, or so forth. But there's all kinds of other programs you can go into, medical transcriptionist, phlebotomy, x-ray tech, all those kind of mushroom cloud out there as opportunities of someone that goes through it. It's really a heavy anatomy based pre-nursing program. Sports therapy is very similar, but it has a little bit more of the occupational therapy and physical therapy side to it.
One of the great things about the programs, this one is a really good point. They're career focused, but they also are built so that you can, if you wanted to go on to higher education to take another path, there are multiple trajectories within that field of study.
And that's a common, misnomer. I think right now the career in tech ed is really ramping up on its popularity and social acceptance because everyone's talking about skilled trades. A lot of times before they thought, hey, you go to the tech school, you can't go on to higher ed. That's not the case anymore. We got about 35 to 40% of our students that are going on to higher ed from the surveys that we've done over the last couple of years of where are you going? And every single one of our programs can go on to higher ed and have a pathway to skill up within their fields.
So am I correct that this needs to be approved by all of the districts that are involved in the tech?
Not really. It only
it's
needs
a
to be approved
courtesy
by
that
our
you're telling us
JOC.
that. Okay, and you're telling us that you're using some of the contingency money to do this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think there's a need for it.
The reason why I'm here is I had offered, being the new director, I'm Matt Laverty, I'm the new director, and people didn't know me. I started July 1st as the director. I offered to all of our superintendents, school boards, to say, hey, I can come around, go to meetings, introduce myself, put a name with a face, say hello, you know, answer questions or whatever. So I've been to about 4 or 5 of the meetings over time. You know, John actually owes me lunch because he put me at the end of the meeting instead of the beginning.
I asked for first. Get overruled.
I gave him a hard time about that in our meeting last week, so. No
Will your
worries.
protective services be able to certify the students as emergency medical technicians?
So that's the goal. There's a series of industry credentials they get to it without having the program and studying exact certifications that we can match up to. I can't answer that for sure, but yes, that's the goal, is to get to where it's a broad program. So it's not just emergency medical services. It's law enforcement. There is criminal justice. There's emergency medical. There's firefighting. It's kind of a broad scope across those.
Yep.
But there are industry credentials they will earn. I don't know if they'll have the one that you're talking about right now.
I think that's one of the ones you should be looking at, because that's a pathway to becoming a paramedic, an EMTP, you know, which is the highly certified, but there's a huge shortage of emergency medical technicians, and they piggyback onto fire, because if you're applying to be a paid firefighter, oftentimes you'll get bonus points, almost like being a veteran if you're an EMT.
Yep.
You know, so that is definitely, I think, something you guys should look at. And is it possible at all to get an Act 120 like they teach at Mercyhurst for police, you know, to be able to be a gun carrying person, or is that something that can't be done in your type of program? I don't know. I'm just asking.
I'm going to have to explore those. I don't know those answers off the top of my head. I do know that they will get entry level, like, certifications into that emergency medical. I don't know quite level that they'll end up getting at the end of our.
And in Erie County, Mercyhurst has the police services and such. So you're definitely going to want to pair up with them in order to get, because quite a few of our municipal police officers in this area go through, if not almost all, probably 80-90% of them end up going to Mercyhurst. But if you can give them a step up and kind of get them towards that, because anymore, a lot of people don't want to become cops, and we're quite short on police officers, but that would help out humanity also.
Absolutely.
So,
I
thank
agree
you.
completely.
Other general comments, and you know, Sally stepped out for a second, but what we're asking tonight is give me direction on how to vote at the joint council meeting. It is a simple majority vote of the sending district, so it is not a unanimous vote required. I do believe that it has the support of a majority of the superintendents, and I'll let you,
That is
as
correct.
part of this conversation, if Millcreek is supportive as well. But it does come with the budgetary challenge, or I don't think it'll be a budgetary challenge for Millcreek, but it might be for some of our other sending districts, because over the 3 years, we will see an increase of 144 students potentially to in year 3 to the tech school. And if we bring on that 4th classroom, we'll be looking at 196 student in 196 student increase, which we all know that the budget is built based on the percentage over multiple years of sending. So it is still a number of heads that attend. I don't think that it will be negative to us. I think that these programs are needed. And as we can see, we invested heavily into this school, and the school is growing. And I would hate for us to stymie it while it's at this pinnacle and our community needs it.
The last thing I would mention is when you look down through and look at those wait lists, people asked, what about construction trades? And what about this program? What about that program? And, you know, we at the tech school can expand as fast as our sending schools can handle it. Construction trades used to be a 2-teacher program, and we're turning, I don't know, 40 some kids away this year. And we got an industry that's, you know, when you look at manufacturing, you look at construction, you talk about infrastructure in the community, big time. That's economic, you know, development. So yeah, so that's something that we'll continue to bring, but we're trying to be thoughtful, scaling it up. We'll be adding 3 new teachers next year to our programs, and in that capacity, we'll add 60 4 students next year, and then it'll ramp up to what you're saying, 144 with a 3-year period. Okay.
Good.
Matt,
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. And
Thank you.
appreciate Taking the time. I know, just for everyone, Matt has offered if we would like to host one of our board meetings at the newly renovated space. They do have a great meeting room that could handle our capacity and share a tour if we want to schedule a tour. He's gracious enough to take us through.
You usually get a pretty good meeting. Thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing that, all those in favor of moving forward to expand the programs, say aye.
Aye.
Item 4 is informational items. So I don't believe we have any other than we will be going out for bonds some point in this month. And
Yeah, that tentatively, depending on the credit rating agency coming back in time, next Thursday, we'll be issuing our debt through the auction with a close of early February.
that takes us to item 5, questions from the public. Are there any questions about any of the agenda items that we spoke of this evening? Yes, Mr. Adler, if you would like to come up with.
Question I have is on the accounts payable. Approximately, how much does the district spend on litigation costs? Thank you.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Senate on this one. Is this a right to know? I mean, I don't have a number just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't think
That's-
that's actually in the accounts payable, the listing that we have, at least I don't believe it is at the present time. So that's some number we could provide at a later point.
I mean, we would need further clarification over a year period, month period.
Okay, okay.
I think that'd be appropriate right to know request.
Seeing no other hands, that will take us to item 6, adjournment. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Concludes our meeting this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to our final committee meeting this evening is Personnel Policy Committee. Mr. Dean.
Thank you, President Winchell. And for the Troop 59, they saved me for the last one because mine's the longest.
They're not smiling, Jason.
Ms. O'Connor, can you take roll item 1.01, please?
Mr. Dean,
Here.
Mr. Brink,
Here.
and Mr. Kubolka.
Here.
Thank you. Item 1.02, approval of the agenda. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 2.01, Personnel and Policy Committee meeting minutes, November 13th, 2023. I'd like to make a motion. We approve 2.01. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 items for action this evening. We have 2 policies that will be taken to the board meeting at the end of the month. And we have the personnel report that will go to the committee of the whole meeting this evening. I'll take these as 2 blocks. So item 3.01, policy 903, public participation in board meetings, first reading. Item 3.02, policy 915, booster clubs, first reading. I'd like to make a motion that we move 3.01 and 3.02 to the end of the month board meeting. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? So item 3.01, policy 903, that eliminates the pre-registration for any person from the public that would like to speak. And it makes everybody a 3-minute speaker. So you show up and you put your, fill out your card and you are a 3-minute speaker. So simplifies things, allows more people to speak at our meetings. And 3.02 is a new policy. This is giving guidance to our booster clubs that we haven't had for a long time. That is very necessary.
Yeah, we have numerous booster clubs handling quite a bit of money. We just want to make sure that they're following all policies and procedures the district wants. So thank you to Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Becker to sit down and kind of work through this. We've been working through this for probably about 3 months now to make sure that we have a good plan in place to make sure the money's all being handled appropriately.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Dean, on policy 301, I know the pre-registration is always an issue. People calling when we have special meetings, that's always an issue. When we have short notice, the 5 days, wanting confirmation of receipt of emails, issues like that. So this does eliminate this. I do know that there are a lot of municipalities do separate because visitor comments at board meetings, the committee of the whole meetings are supposed to be focused on items that are in front of the board to be voted on. And I know that we often have speakers that go way off topic of this. So I know many municipalities, Millcreek is one of them, that separates them, the speakers. I'm not saying that that's the alternative, but they allow speakers to speak at the beginning on items that are in front of the board to vote, and then everything non-related to items that were to be voted on speak at another agenda item towards the end.
That's certainly something we can consider in the future, making that change.
I will say though that through the committee meetings minutes, each individual has 5 minutes to ask questions. Committee of the whole, there's 3 minutes to make comments. In the board meeting, there's 3 minutes to make comments. So each month, an individual could technically have 21 minutes to interact with the board. And for the most part, 21 minutes is more than most board members talk about certain topics.
I think 3 minutes is appropriate. If you can't get your message across in 3 minutes, then send an email to Attorney Senate. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 3.03, January 8th, 2024 Personnel Committee Report. Bell Valley, we have a resignation of a Title I educational assistant, resignation of a staff nurse, recommendation of a teacher grade 1 long-term substitute. We have a rescinded offer of a special education assistant. We have a correction of an educational assistant to Title I educational assistant. Chestnut Hill, we have a resignation of a special ed assistant, autistic support. Chestnut Hill, we have a leave of absence special education teacher. Grandview, we have a change of status, temporary reassignment as instructional support advisor to guidance counselor. Tracy, we have a leave of absence of an educational assistant. Walnut Creek, we have a leave of absence, teacher 8th grade ELA. Westlake, we have a recommendation for a 7th grade ELA long-term substitute. We have a leave of absence for a teacher technology education. J.S. Wilson, we have a recommendation for an educational assistant. Recommendation for an 8th grade ELA teacher long-term substitute. Change of status, J1 second shift custodian at McDowell Intermediate to J1 second shift custodian at J.S. Wilson. McDowell Intermediate, we have a rescinded offer for a J1 custodian second shift. We have a resignation of a special education assistant. We have a change of status of an educational assistant at J.S. Wilson to educational assistant at McDowell High School. Millcreek Education Center, we have a resignation of IT technician. We have a recommendation for 2023-2024 board approved volunteers, 3. Attachment, we have a 2023-2024 academic supplements. And we have the 2023-2024 athletic supplements. We have a change of status of a child development and early learning coordinator to executive assistant to the assistant superintendent / backup right to know officer. And first student activity, we have resignation of 2 drivers and 3 monitors. I'd like to make a motion that we move forward the personnel committee report January 8th, 2023 to the, that's 2024, 2024 to the committee of the whole meeting this evening. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. One thing I'd like us to explore is we've had a decent amount of staff nurses resign. And I know we've looked at using some type of an outside company to fill this. But if I'm not mistaken, we're paying around $20 an hour, and that's nowhere near enough for a nurse. A lot of our other departments are custodial, and a bunch of our assistants and such have gotten a pay raise. So I just want to put it out there that maybe we need to, because it's going to cost us a lot more money when we use an outside service for that. But I'd like to do an exploratory on getting a more of a better wage for the nurses.
We're currently in negotiations
Yeah.
at this moment in time.
Are you, okay, okay, so that's in the plans?
We're in negotiations with the staff nurses currently, and the school nurses fall under the MEA, so we've already negotiated their side, but the staff ones where the biggest turnover is part of the current negotiations that's going on with the Teamsters Union.
Okay, I guess I didn't realize there's a difference. What's the difference between a school nurse and a staff nurse?
Ed, you want to explain that one for us, please?
So a school nurse is a certified school nurse, which is a PDE certification. So it's a teaching certificate. We're required by the Department of Ed to have so many CSNs per student. So we have 7 full-time CSNs who work in the MEA agreement. And that group is not experiencing significant turnover.
Okay.
Pretty stable, much like our teaching workforce. The staff nurses, however, I believe their starting salary this year is 22 and change. So you're close on that, but significant turnover in staff nurses, similar to our significant turnover in special ed assistants. So you're correct in that.
And that's not like an LPN versus an RN. It's more of a special certification to be a school nurse, correct?
To be a school nurse, you have to have a BSN. So you have to be an RN and have a bachelor's degree. To be a certified school nurse in the teacher's agreement, to be a staff nurse, you can have either an RN or an LPN and serve in that capacity. They work under the direction of the certified school nurses.
Okay, well, thank you for enlightening me. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Just a quick question. It's not common to see that things are rescinded. I'm just curious as to what would cause us to rescind an offer.
Dr. Kavanaugh?
Yeah, that's what I have to look to see
So
which one it
it's
was.
under Bell Valley, special ed assistant.
I can answer that, Dr. Kavanaugh.
Yes,
So
that good.
that's, again, Mrs. Winchell, that's one of the positions that we've been frequently interviewing for. So we bring in groups of candidates, offers are made, and there have been, my personal belief is that it's the job market right now, but we've had special ed assistants, staff nurses accept positions. And then as the HR is going through the process of collecting their clearances, onboarding them and things like that, they're a week or 2 away from the board meeting to get hired, and they email and say, I'm taking another job somewhere else. Thank you, though. So that's what's, again, it's really out of our control that that's happened, but it has happened several times.
And to add to that, Mrs. Winchell, that's one of the reasons that we asked sometimes to have the COW meetings to vote mid-month instead of waiting until the end of the month. Because sometimes by the time we can get someone in front of the board to vote, they exit and go elsewhere to work.
Thank you.
Jason, I just have one comment because it wouldn't be, we didn't talk about athletics. I appreciate that the supplemental looks great. So thank you. It's clear and it makes sense. I appreciate that. Is there any reason why the head coach for track and field is 2 positions and not 1, like all the others are boys and girls track? Wouldn't it make sense that it would be boys and girls track as opposed to 2 positions? They're just grouped together. Because I can't imagine you'd have 2 head coaches that shared all the same assistant coaches.
Just a good way to look at it. I mean, it's one thing that ultimately in the process in the past, it has always been 2 separate positions. And at times you've had 2 separate coaches, but then we've kind of let one coach take on the role of both of them.
Now that we've put them all as their assistant for boys and girls by actual event, you're not going to, if you had 2 different coaches, you would have to have 2 separate people, or you'd have to have some type of agreement. I mean, I think you're going to go with this route, and I don't have a problem with this route. I think you just go all the way.
Okay. Let me look into that for you.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 4.01, informational items. We have no informational items. 5.01, questions from the public. Anybody have any questions about an agenda item? Okay, 6.01 adjournment. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn. I was just kidding about me being the longest.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, President Winchell.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our committee meetings. Now we'll move into the committee of the whole meeting. Connor, can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Brink,
Here.
Mr. Dean,
Here.
Ms. Philbeck,
Here.
Mr. Kobilka,
Here.
Mr. Lindner,
Here.
Ms. Newsham,
Here.
Ms. Pasquale,
Here.
Mr. Winchell,
Here.
Ms. Winchell,
Here.
Dr. Kavanaugh,
Here.
Attorney Senate,
Here.
1.02 approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion for the approval of this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion passes. 1.03, Pledge of Allegiance. If I could ask our scouts to lead us, Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
2.01 visitors, visitor comments. We provide the opportunity for speakers to address the board for up to 5 minutes to make comments if a request is made in advance. In addition, we provide an opportunity for a visitor to make comments for up to 3 minutes. Details can be found on the MTSD website with each meeting announcement. The same speaking protocols apply to all individuals who wish to address the board. If not pre-registered and would like to speak, please complete the form provided at the entrance to this room and submit it to the board secretary before speaking. Speakers are asked to state their name and topic before speaking. As guests of the board, you are encouraged to speak about matters related to the programs, services, and operations of the Millcreek Township School District. Please remember, we are prohibited from discussing specific employees, job performance, or pending litigation. As a reminder to the board and the public, the board will not engage in a discussion with public forum speakers. It is an obligation to discuss only matters posted in a public agenda for the sake of transparency. Any other matters requiring attention will receive the appropriate administrative follow-up at a time following the meeting. During the committee meetings held the second Monday of each month, opportunities are available for visitors to ask questions and be part of the back and forth dialogue about any item on the committee's agenda. We ask all speakers to avoid references to personalities or to individual character attacks, as those type of comments do not contribute to the purpose for which this type of public forum exists. Thank you for your cooperation. We appreciate your input and your feedback. We do have 3 pre-registered speakers this evening, 5 minutes. The first one is Laura Oathout. Please state your name for the record and your topic, please. And you have 5 minutes, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Oathout. I'm here to talk about the pre-K program. I'm a resident, a teacher, and a parent in the Millcreek Township School District, and I live within the Asbury-Westlake border with my husband, who's also a teacher here at McDowell, and our 3 soon-to-be 4 children. And I'm just speaking to urge the board to reconsider the elimination of the preschool program. My husband and I met at the General McLean School District, where we both knew special education teachers in 2014. We love GM as a district and a community, but we always had the vision to return to Millcreek and start our family as well as progress our careers. Both of us attended Millcreek schools all the way through and were inspired to become teachers as a direct impact of the positive, life-changing experience we had as students in the classroom at Millcreek. As we began our family, it was our vision to raise our children to have the opportunity to benefit from the same rich experiences we had as children and young adults. I had a list of all the things, but it was too long, so I cut it out. But we still continue to firmly believe and advocate that MTSD schools are the very best place for our children to have the privilege to be educated. One thing we didn't anticipate as working parents was the extreme continual difficulty of obtaining and maintaining consistent, reliable childcare for our young children. Little did we know when we started our family the devastating effects COVID would have on our options. This issue has continued to plague us as the #1 most difficult part of being working parents of young children. One bright, amazing, shining star in this continual struggle has been the pre-K program. Specifically, I'm going to talk about Walnut Creek. 2 years ago, we had no idea of the positive impact this special program would have on our family. Our daughter Vivian has attended the pre-K program at Walnut Creek for the past 2 years. She is also set to attend next year, as well as our son. She is an amazing teacher, Miss Jennifer Schuster. I want to say her name here tonight. The only sentiments we could possibly express about this program from a parent perspective and as educators are extremely positive. She's learning, growing, and cared for in a safe and nurturing environment. She's advancing rapidly academically as well as social emotionally. The list could go, I could go on forever about how great the program is. When we received the unexpected notice that the pre-K programs would be closing next year, I'm a problem solver, so I quickly put everything on a spreadsheet, and in short, the findings are simple. The real only direct comparable option for price, schedule, and ability to meet our needs for before care as working parents is the parochial schools. Our family, who places a huge emphasis on education, faces a challenging decision at this point of just what to do next. Idealistically, the things that are easy to get lost in the conversation, I think, are the most important of all. I know we talk about money a lot, but there's absolutely no dollar amount one can put on the feeling of comfort and safety it brings both me and my child to be under the same roof during our school day. Additionally, the sheer convenience logistically of my children being able to come to work with me is just a great bonus. I'm able to be a much better professional, I'm more focused, less distracted, and due to these amazing circumstances. My daughter gets to reap the benefits from walking the hallways, becoming a Trojan, and having the true Millcreek experience we talk about in meetings and philosophically as educators. She's building cross-curricular connections with middle schoolers. Frequently, the students that are benefiting from those positive experiences are the kids that need them the most in the middle school, not just the preschoolers. The pathways in her brain these experiences are forming are telling her school is safe, school's fun, teachers are here to help me. The list goes on, but she's definitely proud to be a Trojan. These pathways are going to be setting up for future academic success, that I'm sure. In the letter sent home, it stated that 69% of the current pre-K community will be moving to kindergarten next year. Still an additional 31% to consider, and I know someone mentioned along with their siblings. We as a family were planning on having 2 children pre-K here for the next 2 years, and then 1 child continually until 2029. It's a 5-year problem for us to solve. I'm not going to talk about the CDC. I'm going to just cut that part out, but the classrooms just aren't as comparable due to their schedule, not having school on Fridays, and also the cost. Bringing our children to in-house pre-K was simply one small perk that made being an MTSD employee a little bit better. It'll be sad for our family to see this program go away. I just wanted to mention, and it's all around our heads, our mission statement as a school district. We say that we're going to provide a world-class education, and we're talking about students as lifelong learners, and that all students have the opportunity for relevant and rigorous programming. Surely giving the rigor and high expectations built into our pre-K program by eliminating it, children will not be entering kindergarten as ready as they have been for the last 15 years. And just leaving you with a thought with how important are these individuals to us as a community? And when do we believe that learning begins or is relevant to a student's future? And I would say that these little citizens are very important. Thank you.
Thank you. The next pre-registered speaker is Autumn Rury. If you state your name and topic, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Autumn. This is about pre-K. So my husband Jeremy and I are both McDowell alumni. I'm 4th generation. We're born and raised in Millcreek. We have 3 children, ages 10, 4, and 1. We moved from the Grandview area to Bell Valley in July of 2022 as I run a restaurant near our new house. My son reluctantly switched schools, but ultimately loved the decision we made after settling in during his 2nd year at Bell Valley as a student. I had always believed Millcreek School District was the best in the area, despite conflict over the last decade. There was never any question where we would send our children when it came time to start school. Our brilliant daughter attends the pre-K program at Bell Valley with Miss Jessica, where she will also attend K through 5. We were nervous for her, not academically, but because of her strong-willed attitude and her demand to run the room. To our surprise, she's not only thriving academically, she's excelling with her social emotional skills as well. My daughter started as one of the youngest in the class, being one of the youngest 3-year-olds. We wanted her to have a structured environment to be able to learn and be creative with other children, as she had never been in childcare prior to that. I put so much emphasis on my daughter and her success because she truly has come leaps and bounds since beginning this program and just continues to soak up everything her wonderful teacher has taught her. One of the things that I wanted to point out was that I found it was a coincidence that just this year, pre-K teachers were added to the 12-month payroll over a 9-month payroll they had prior. Why is it that the year after they are added to the union to receive more reasonable pay and benefits that this program is going to be cut? Why is it that these teachers that show up day in and day out to care for and mold our children into thriving kindergarten students and beyond weren't given more of a notice than the parents that their jobs in the future for their kids and this program could be shut down? This was done with poor consideration on the school district part by not making sure that their questions and concerns were handled and heard beforehand and before being bombarded with parents across the area all looking for answers. I had to cut out some parts of this, sorry. Now to bring up topics in the letter. It states that the children at Westlake Asbury, Walnut Creek, and McDowell will be able to relocate to the CDC Asbury. This is wonderful for them, but what about the other children in Millcreek that were planning on using that center and the other families that already had planned on using that center? Where do they go, as there are already very minimal options in Millcreek for childcare and pre-K? And I don't know, if anyone actually looked into other places, but it's very challenging to get any childcare, and it has been for at least the last 10 years. Parents are on the wait list for months before getting a spot in any childcare across Erie County. Closing this program only makes it more challenging for families to find care all over Erie. Bell Valley pre-K were directed to the East Erie CDC locations, which were not disclosed in the letter of course, which I feel was 100% intentional, especially after looking up where those locations were, which were 7th and Cascade, East 27th, and East 10th and State. To have the expectation that this would be an acceptable solution for the Bell Valley families is distasteful. I would also love to bring up that the CDC has made it clear that they currently do not accept tuition, and the families that they provide for are all Head Start or pre-K counts qualified families. The income limit for a family of 4 is $90,000 and just over $105,000 for a family of 5, leaving a lot of families unable to use those services even if they chose to. A couple questions that I just had to leave people thinking is, why are we not looking for ways to expand the program and make it more well known? Because a lot of people don't even know this program exists. That's what we should be focusing on, not trying to push these kids out. And because it's not, we have all these COVID babies coming up. There's babies everywhere. They're going to have nowhere to go. So instead of trying to build the program, we're just taking it down. Thank you.
Last pre-registered speaker this evening is Mr. Aliota. Mr. Aliota, please state your name and your topic, and you have 5 minutes.
Lou Aliota, my address is on file. Good evening, board, administration, students, parents, and taxpayers. All comments made by me at this public meeting is my personal opinion and should not be construed or interpreted as legal advice, as those made by licensed attorneys to practice law in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Violations of laws. What are they? Violations by public officials, whether elected or appointed. All school board directors and other district public officials have received my email and are aware of the consequences by public officials in violations of law. These topics should have been shared by all solicitors of public entities at public meetings so that the public officials and the public know there are consequences for violations of law. Each and every school board director and public official know these violations, and to violate them is a serious offense with penalties when they take the oath of office. Violation 18 U.S.C. 241, civil rights, conspiracy against a person, and 18 U.S.C. 242, which is the deprivation of rights under the color of law, both of which are a felony of a penalty of not more than $250,000. Section 241 makes it unlawful for two or more persons to agree to injure, threaten, or intimidate a person in the United States in a free exercise or enjoyment of their right or privilege secured by the U.S. Constitution or any laws in the United States because of his or her exercised such a right. Section 242, this provision makes it a crime for someone acting under the color of law to willfully deprive a person of the right or privilege protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States and the Commonwealth. It is not necessary that the offense be motivated by racial bias or by any other animus. Defendants under the color of law, when they wield a power vested by the government entity, those prosecuted under the statute typically include police officers, sheriffs, deputies, and prison guards. However, other government actors such as judges, district attorneys, and other public officials, whether elected or appointed, and public school employees can also act under the color of law and can be prosecuted under the statute. Why hasn't the local media published these issues? If someone treats you badly, just remember, there is something wrong with that person, not you. Normal people don't go around destroying other human beings. Why did the MTSD and school district settle a litigation complaint case last year, less than 60 days for $250,000 to an employee who was employed for less than 18 months? This was the same time that a former superintendent resigned in such a robust manner. Coincidence? The disciplinary board of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania is dedicated to protecting the public, maintaining the integrity of the legal profession, and safeguarding the reputation of the courts. Stay tuned. More to come. Thank you for the opportunity to exercise my freedom of speech at a public meeting.
Thank you. Before we move on to the individual speak this evening, I would just to Autumn, I would just in the letter Dr. Kavanaugh sent out is the contact information for the CDC, the director. Okay, well, I just not aware of the pre-K versus tuition, so I think was that clip.
May I ask you that you please reach out to Mrs. Irwin, who is in the letter. She is the director, and she can explain what the truth is. The people that you guys are calling and contacting there are giving you inaccurate information. Okay.
The form, the pre-registration is 5 days before the board meeting. So, but you're on here to speak, sure. But yeah. Okay, well, it's 3. So 5, sure. Okay, so let's move on. The pre-registered 5-day requests are complete. So let's move on to the 3 minutes, the ones that registered this evening. John May, I know he had asked questions. I don't know if he left. Is John May still in the audience? Okay, looks like he's not. So Dr. White, 3 minutes. Sure.
Hi, once again, Dr. Matthew White. I run Whitethorn Games downtown. We're a video game publisher. We have 30 employees, largely between the age of 20 and 60. They're from everywhere but Erie, Pennsylvania. And actually, so am I. So tonight, I'm just very briefly going to speak to the value of the Millcreek School District and, again, specifically the pre-K program as a larger part of the growth of the community and the county. I can't really speak beyond what the other parents have already elucidated to the quality of the education my children receive. Mac is bright and difficult, and Mrs. Morrison is wonderful with him and has been for a long time. And I continue to hope that Van and Ash, his little brothers, will receive the same treatment that he has. But that said, I'd like to speak more to the growth of the county. It's been a very hard growth here in Erie for our company. We do about $5 million in revenue a year. We pay very competitive salaries, and all of my employees are transplants. We've moved people in from out of country, but primarily we move from Seattle, California, Chicago, those areas. The games industry doesn't pay terribly competitively compared to others, and so Erie's a place where someone can make a $70,000 salary and actually not live in a trailer, like not a trailer in a trailer park, like on the back of my pickup truck, which is very much more what happens in California. I myself am not from here. I grew up in Nova Scotia. I've lived in Japan, Europe, most recently California, and then here to grow. The singular problem in retaining employees as an employer in this county is the complete unavailability of childcare for our employees. And every time one closes, another nail in our economic coffin is driven lightly deeper. We have nowhere to store our young professionals' children. Children are not dogs. They're not to be kenneled, right? And our options are limited, extremely limited. As other parents have noted, the options are either waitlisted out for more than 3 to 5 years, such as ones at the local universities. They're religious, and almost all of my employees are either atheists or from a religion that is not Christianity. As a result, this means that their options are further limited. And beyond that, the public schools don't terribly offer them. And most of our employees choose, of course, to come to Millcreek or Harbor Creek because of the quality of the education they anticipate their children will receive. This makes it hard for me, not only as a parent, but also as somebody trying to grow and develop and revitalize the entire county. We lack availability of options for our employees in order to retain them, and a huge part of that is their children. We have 4 new Erieites coming from my staff in the next 9 months, thereabouts, all of whom will be looking for that kind of care. And every time we close one of these, it makes it more and more difficult for us to continue to grow. I just wanted the board to take a moment to think about the larger ramifications. Certainly 31 students is no small matter, but it definitely spills over into the larger community. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. White. That concludes the pre-registration and the ones that have signed up. Is there any other speakers or anyone else in the audience who would like to speak this evening on any topic? You have 3 minutes. Okay, last opportunity. Any other speakers like to speak this evening on any topic? Okay, move on. Thank you for the speakers. Item 3, Superintendent's report.
So we have 3 items coming forward this evening that we would like the board to vote on that started in committee this evening. The first is the proposal for the ECTS program addition and expansion of cosmetology, health assistant, and protective services. So that Mr. Linder has a direction on which way to vote. I'd like to bring that forward to the board for a vote.
I have a motion to bring the item Dr. Kavanaugh just mentioned. I have a motion to approve. You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. That motion passes.
Okay, so 3.02 started earlier in the Instruction Student Services Committee, the additional counseling hours for our SAP mental health counselors in the building with the addendum that was added to it.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. That motion passes.
And the final item under the superintendent's report this evening is the personnel report for January 8th, 2024. I would ask for that for your approval.
I have a motion for 303 personnel report, January 8th, 2024.
Motion.
Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
President Winchell, just we need to update that date on the personnel report on the top left. It says 2023. So maybe just before we put that out there to the public side.
On the public side, right? Okay. But the motion as and seconded is for the personnel report of January 2024. Record. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion passes.
That concludes my items. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, item 4, Solicitor's Report, Attorney Senate.
Yes, item 4.01 is a settlement agreement and mutual release. That agreement is between William Hall, Louis Aliota, and the Millcreek Township Board of School Directors. That agreement includes that Mr. Hall will discontinue his defamation counterclaim filed against Mr. Aliota. Mr. Aliota will discontinue his abuse of process claim against Mr. Hall. Mr. Aliota will discontinue his abuse of process claim against the Millcreek Township School District. And Mr. Aliota, through his insurance carrier, will pay $10,000 to William Hall. And the last item I point out is the confidentiality provision. After this agreement is signed by all parties, which would include the board members, in paragraph 5 on page 2, the parties are only permitted to disclose that the lawsuits have been resolved and that they are subject to a confidentiality agreement, not to disclose anything further. So once this document is completely approved and signed, you are limited to that sentence if you're asked any questions about this agreement. So I'm seeking from the board approval of that agreement.
Attorney Senate, could you also mention the caveat that's in there that allows Mr. Aliota to continue his federal lawsuit, that this does not affect that? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Would you be able to say that?
You are correct that the federal lawsuit could continue. It doesn't affect the federal lawsuit filed by Mr. Aliota against the Millcreek Township School District, which is presently, the school district has presently filed a motion to dismiss in that case, and it's pending judge's ruling in regard to that motion.
So can I have a motion to accept the settlement agreement and release item 4.01 under Attorney Senate Solicitor's Report?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call vote to accept the settlement agreement?
Mr. Brink,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Philbeck,
Yes.
Mr. Kobelka,
I feel I should abstain.
Mr. Lindner,
Yes.
Ms. Newsham,
Yes.
Ms. Pasquale,
Yes.
Mr. Winchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Winchell.
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Cabell, could you fill out an abstention form then at the end?
Certainly. Yep.
Second item I have for tonight, 4.02, is an addendum to agreement of sale. As you will recall, we have entered into an agreement of sale with Millcreek Township to sell the property at Lakewood Park on West 10th Street between Chelsea and Oakmont Avenue. That agreement had a due diligence period and a closing period by December 31st. The township requested an extension of that closing period to March 31st because they were seeking grant funding to help pay for the purchase price. So that is the purpose of the addendum, to give them extra time to close the transaction by March 31st. So seeking your approval of the addendum to the agreements.
Can I have a motion to accept the addendum to the agreement of sale of Lakewood Park?
Motion.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion passes.
And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5.01, old business. Is there any old business? Hearing none, we'll move on to items 6.01, new business. Any new business? Hearing none, we'll move on to the remarks on the different liaison reports. First one is Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit. All these were sent an attachment from the last board of directors meeting. And a couple items here, Penn State Barron, in collaboration with the IU, will be hosting a training for high school teachers on January 22nd at the PSU Planetarium in regard to science behind the eclipse. Teachers will be participating in activities led by the PSU team in which they will participate in simulation of a total eclipse. On the state level, House Bill 1507 allows school district leaders to decide whether the school year should be 180 days or 990 secondary or 900 elementary hours, the equivalent of 185.5-hour days. Significance of that is because some of the staffing shortages and busing and transportation on the east side of the state, some school districts are pursuing 4-day school weeks. So this would allow them to circumvent the 180 days by changing the hours. Also in the state school mandate relief reviewed by the Senate Education Committee, the burden of state mandates on public schools was reviewed in depth during a public hearing of the Senate Education Committee on November the 28th. Another item that's a topic is later school start time proposed. Senator Representative Jill Cooper and a member of the House Education Committee is circulating a co-sponsorship memorandum for legislation she is drafting that will require Commonwealth secondary schools to start no earlier than 8:15 a.m. starting in a 26-27 school year. Cooper cites an October 2019 report by the Joint State Government Commission in Pennsylvania, Sleep Deprivation in Adolescents, a case for delaying secondary school start times to justify the required starting time. Again, that article is linked to the attachment that I've given you. Last item too is that in national news, talking about counseling, lacking counselors in U.S. schools turned a booming industry for online therapy. Now, at least 16 of the 20 largest U.S. public school districts are offering online therapy sessions to reach 1 million of their students. According to the analysis by Associated Press, in those districts alone, schools have signed provider contracts worth more than $70 million. So again, the need for more mental health is going more virtual. Okay, next is, let's see, anything from Erie County Technical School?
Big thing, a lot of applicants. Millcreek has a large number of applicants for next year. The school is doing extremely well with enrollment, and the offer is out there if we would like to take a tour of the facility. Building is close to being finished. They are in the last phase and should be to substantial completion probably by the end of February for the last section of the building, but about 85% of the building is completed at this point. If you've never been out there, I would strongly recommend that we set up a time at one of the next joint meetings to come out beforehand and get to see and join us for dinner. The culinary program there is outstanding, and I wish that we had a culinary program that offered us a meal every night.
There you go. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lindner. 7.03, school board remarks. Any school board member would like to make any remarks at this time? Yes, Ms. Winchell.
I would like to thank Boy Scout Troop 59 for joining us this evening. This is our largest crowd in months, maybe even years. You are welcome to come back anytime. Thank you so much.
Any other school board remarks?
There are different levels to this badge that you're earning. You have attended 4 community meetings.
Yeah, right.
Not 1. Technically, it is 4. Thank you for staying for all 4.
Well, as an Eagle Scout from Troop 90, I know you converged with Troop 90 and those canoes, Howie, Troop 90 bought those canoes way back when, So keep going. It's a great program. And still to this day, when people realize or find out that I'm an Eagle Scout, to still be recognized. And once I had said, yeah, I was an Eagle Scout, and I was corrected, and no, you are an Eagle Scout. So keep with it. I see a couple Order of the Arrows, and so congratulations on that. We got an ordeal there. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. Any other board remarks? Dr. Kavanaugh.
So along those lines, I would like to thank you guys for attending tonight. I was wondering, and I'm hoping this isn't out of line because it's new to me, if you guys had any comments that you would like to share based on your experience here this evening. Would any of the students who are joining us with the Boy Scout Troop like to speak at all or share anything? As they get the frightened look on their faces.
He just wants a check mark for the merit badge.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I offered the opportunity, but thank you guys for attending this evening, especially such a long board meeting. My other one this evening is geared towards the school board. So January is designated as School Director Recognition Month to honor school board directors and their dedication to public education excellence. More than 85% of Pennsylvania students attend public schools. Along with district administration, the 9 board members of each local school board make complex decisions to guide public schools and provide an educational environment where every student can find a path to success. School board directors, as you know, volunteer hours of their time and effort to the challenging and complex responsibilities of board business, such as voting on budgets, adopting policy, conducting comprehensive planning. Your role has only been made more challenging by education funding issues, pandemic recovery, and other matters directly impact the students and families in the community. So I want to be the first to recognize you guys and thank you for your time and service. I have certificates for each of you. I will be presenting you at this moment. Thank you very much for your service as part of School Board Recognition Month.
Dr. Kavanaugh, can those certificates be used for dinner at the Erie Countyville Tech School?
Mr. Kabilka, if you come as my guest, I promise I will get you dinner. I'll take 2 certificates, please. Yes, I do. Indeed. Thank you.
Thanks.
That concludes my remarks, Mr. Winchell.
Okay, our next meeting is the regularly scheduled school board meeting on January 22nd, starting at 7 p.m. And with that, let's go to item 8, Committee of the Whole adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Have a second. Okay, second. Any discussion? Never hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against, nay. We're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.